G'day champions, just a super quickie on this Tone King Imperial. It's generally a very nice amp. It's sort of like a, I haven't looked at the schematic in detail, but it looks like a Fender style setup, but with channel switching instead of two independent inputs, which is handy. Good idea. Now generally it's very well constructed. From what I hear feedback from those in the know, this is a Bartel era Tone King, one of the sought after ones. And they're still fantastic amps to this day, but when Mark was in charge, they were really another level. So down here I've just got a blank, well, just a RCA adapter that's not connected to anything, just to disable the Tremolo and Reverb. Just for testing, just so that I don't have the HT voltages jumping around in times with the Tremolo. But I couldn't help but notice there's no lock washers on any of the jacks. Then checking out the front panel, I realised there's none on the pots either, and they're just spinning around. So I'll remove all those pots, and there's plenty of bushing there spare. I don't know why they didn't install them from the factory, but I'll install some 3/8 lock washers on there because they're 3/8 thread alphas. Generally speaking, these switches are okay because they've got the lock nut behind them. So that's, as long as that's done up tight from the back end, that should be pretty secure. Now this one's got a solid state tremolo. It uses a IRF 840A to provide the tremolo oscillation. So that saves one valve. As we saw on the other side, it's only got 5, whereas your typical Fender AB 763 setup has 6 valves. So it does away with the tremolo and the neon driver by having that one FET there. And the fact that it doesn't need a neon driver because it's bias wiggle. Now the lamp was playing up a little bit. They often get a little bit corroded down because they're just sort of press fit, and you get flickering lights even though there's nothing wrong with the light itself, the lamp. So sometimes you can sort of twist them and get a bit of tension on there, and that's what's happened here. Now wiggling the light bulb around, it stays bright at all times. The front panel's a little dirty. I'll give it a bit of a clean while I've got those pots loosened off to install the lock washer. The front panel's a bit dirty. I'll give it a clean up while we've removed the pots to install those lock washers. They're basically just internal star washers. So she's a cathode bias setup, and it's biased to it's got Electro Harmonic 6v6 GTs in there, which are rated at 14 watts maximum dissipation on the plate, and we're running 13.3 watts on one side, 14.3 on the other, so 95% on one side, 102 on the other. Good enough for rock and roll. Now that's another point. The only connection to the ground of the output transformer secondary is right there, and there's no tooth washer, so we definitely need one there. And looking at the other side of the rear panel, because it's a thick aluminium chassis, we probably don't have enough meat there. I'll see if it compresses enough, but we might have to replace that jack with a longer bushing type. No biggie, it's just a standard jack anyway, no fancy switching or anything. It's just, I think the part number is FAL11 for the long shaft, long bushing one. Yeah, you got to keep all the different switchcraft types of jacks in stock, otherwise you're ordering every 5 minutes, and in Australia here that's not a way to make a living. So I'm a little bit disappointed to see axial caps all the way through, because one day we won't be able to get them, but it does have the advantage of easy servicing, with the exception of maybe that cable tie being a little bit of a pain to remove. I'd prefer a dab of silicone because you can slice it through from this side, scrape off the excess and go again. And being a nitpicky dickhead, the only other thing I'd change with this design is I'd probably have all the power lines going the opposite way, so your resistors aren't passing over all the HT lines, because I don't completely trust the insulation on those resistor bodies. So what I'd probably prefer to do is have all the voltage lines, all the supply lines on the other side of the board, the bottom side, and then have all your signal lines going this way on this side, so you're avoiding all those resistor undersides where possible, or at least on the HT stuff. And it also makes signal tracing easier. If there is a problem, you can visually identify what signals are going where by the traces on the board, which would be on the top side. But hey, besides that, it's a fantastic amp. It's got relay switching derived from the heater supply. You can see the little diode there, and it's filtering. It's running them at about 8 volts. They are 5-volt relays. We're sitting at 7.75 volts on the relay coils, which is a little bit high. They are 5-volt relays, so I'd like to at least see a 6-volter in there, or a dropper resistor, so when those relays are drawing current, maybe it'll drop down to the 5 volts, which is what I experienced on my my design, where I had a pair of relays hanging off the heater supply. So we'll get that work done, we'll get it back together, and I don't know if we'll have time to do a sound sample, but just trust me, this thing sounds fantastic even as is, and it'll sound probably no different once I'm done. I'm primarily just doing hardware bits and pieces, you know, nuts and bolts kind of stuff to this one. Electronically, she's fine. Now the cab's a bit dirty, so I'll give it a full clean out. Clean off the speaker basket, because that dust will absorb moisture and eventually break through that paint and start corroding the basket, which you often see on the evidences. But it's got high quality speaker wire. It's wired correctly. Might pop the back of that off and just make sure that the inside of the plug's okay as well. And just double check. This is all just routine stuff, part of a service. Clean the tank bag down there for the reverb tank and make sure it's oriented so the pickup side is furthest distance possible from the power transformer for lowest amount of hum. Now the cabinet's like a 12mm birch ply. Nicely built, strong. Must be a finger joined one, but nice and lightweight and resonant. And in a good way. It sounded really nice in this cabinet. Feels like he's got a 9mm, kind of hard to tell with the grill. Feels like a 9mm baffle, which is my preference, because you can put a 10mm demon nut in there and it can just poke out 1mm over the other side, but you've got the grill cloth suspended a good 3mm in midair anyway. Looks like a custom voiced eminence. They do offer that service, and you can put your OEM sticker on there. Yeah, the attention to detail in the cab is pretty nice. Typical of a Bartel, but you should see what he's doing these days. He's building the Bentley of amplifiers these days, with the price tag to match. So the cab smells a bit like tobacco, so we'll give it a wash on the outside, see if we can clean off a bit of the schmoo. Sometimes that stains into the Tilex though, so you don't have much of a chance. And just clean up the front where there's a bit of collected dirt and dust, and hopefully that takes a bit of the smell along with it. See, I'm not sure what happened there. Like, they're barely finger tight. 2 fingers on the screwdriver, you could probably just undo them by hand. Yeah, maybe not. Oh yeah, yep. So what often happens is anyone that's worked in like production or manufacturing knows this. One of the parts bins will run out possibly, and there's that guy that's like, it's not my job to track stock, so he doesn't tell anyone. He just like spitefully continues doing his job poorly because he's run out of the part that, you know, the management should have known to order. Everyone's worked with someone like that, so maybe that's the case here. I'm not saying that's what happened, but everyone's worked with someone like that, and it just brings back memories of the joinery industry. Run out of 40mm screws, just start using 30mm screws, should be right, and then you take it to site and everything falls apart because some dickhead didn't want to just flag that they're out of stock. Good times. Glad I left that shit show behind. Anyway, we'll get these pots out. Fortunately, they've got enough room there to move, so we can just back them off, pull them out a little bit, insert a lock washer, and go again. You can see here the speaker jack. That's actually worked out well. It's perfectly flush with the nut, and nice and secure now. The same goes for the foot switch jack. Nice and tight. Okay, this is what I was afraid of. Can't get the pots out. I thought we might have enough room there to jimmy it down, but not a chance. Everything's too tight, so even unsoldering them won't help, because we just can't get enough angle on the dangle before the tight shite. So what's involved in that? Could just tighten them up again and play dumb, but now I've looked at it, they're just going to come loose again. So you really wonder why they didn't do it from the factory, eh? Because it's a lot of work now. Anyway, let's dig in, get it done. Alright, I've changed my mind. This amp is a pain in the ass. Just to get to those pots, I've had to desolder every single connection on the front. Desolder the output transformer. Everything's lead-free solder, so by the time it melts, you've melted the jacket of the wire because you've got to heat it so much, even with flux and added low melting point solder. All these massive screws here which hold on the shield on the top, which could have been done with foil on top of the cabinet, they mean that the board has to be lifted significantly before you can move it laterally enough to get to the pots. Now bear in mind, yeah, this is me being anal and putting lock washers on a pot, on all the pots. Like, I probably could have just tightened them up and left them like that. They'd loosen off again, but just do it again when it happens. I'm trying to go the extra mile for this customer, as I always do, but also if one of these pots failed, just to change one pot, you got to do all of this. It's as bad as a mess of boogie. So my mind has changed about this amp. Sounds great, designed not to be you know, serviced, or the design in servicing wasn't well thought out enough for my very high standards. So I'll have to try and get this board up. Everything's fighting me. Everything's so tight, and all of these standoffs, although you could possibly unscrew them from the other side, they do have another nut on the chassis. So it goes screw, chassis, nut, standoff, board, nut, standoff, and then whatever's on top of that. So yeah, to make everything neat and tidy has made it not very service friendly. That's the hard truth. And while doing that, I've, I don't know, ruptured something in my tendons of my elbow there. Just turning a screwdriver almost sent me through the roof, so now I've just tried to support it with some bandage. So yeah, that makes things a lot more fun. Not? Alright, I've got one in. I've had to put a nut on the bottom of the bushing because for some stupid reason these 3/8 bushings are more like 10.5mm internal, and I can't get anything between that and 8mm. It's stupid. I don't know why whoever makes these doesn't make them to the proper 3/8 size. They've always got too much play, and that ends up sitting flat, and also ends up with the bushing flush with the nut, which is what we want. So I'm starting to really hate myself after committing to this, because I don't want to unsolder these because they've wrapped them around the edge of the board like twice. So I reckon we'll rip pads because the lead-free solder wants to melt at like 380 degrees, which is ridiculous. And we'll probably melt some jackets there as well. It's all well and good to solder this stuff up, but you got to think about what the servicing is going to require, and there was no thought to that whatsoever on this amp. So to get these pots out, I've got to push them through, and then I've got to slide them out under the board because I can't come out this way because those wires are stopping us. And then once I put the fitting on there, the nut on there, I've got to slide it all the way back and put it back in because I can't access down inside there. There's only a can barely get my finger down there. So I'm really hating myself for committing to this, but next time I'll just tighten them up, and it is what it is. I try to improve stuff where I can, but sometimes I feel like I'm doing myself a disservice by doing so. Alright, you can see here the one that I've reinstalled to the right. It's about 3mm short of the one on the left, which also means that the knobs won't sit a mile out from the front panel. And it's still about 1/2mm from the base of the knob to that nut, but there you can see that's bottomed out against the shaft. So's your mum. And we've got about 3 or 4mm before the nut even. So it just looks more finished, less amateury, and overall more secure. All the knobs are sitting pretty, and all the jacks on the rear panel have got lock washers now as well, so everything's nice and tight. I don't know, is it just me with OCD being overly, you know, thorough? Let's call it thorough. It just seems like things could be done better. I don't know. I think I'm being a little bit too picky. I don't know. You tell me in the comments. Alright, on to the cabinet champions. I've noticed a few little patches of mould kicking off there. Don't mind the white balance. I've got two different lights happening on the bottom and on the tank bag. So we'll clean it up as best we can. Vacuum it up. Hopefully we take most of the spores with us. Now there is a little bit of filiform corrosion. I've talked about filiform corrosion before. It's corrosion that spreads underneath the coating on a metal, and that's occurring on the speaker basket. They just got this really thin, almost like a electro plated black. It doesn't seem thick enough to be a paint. I don't know what it is, but it could just be really thin paint. I don't know. But all the Eminence drivers seem to get this after a while, so I really wish they'd go for maybe a powder coat or something a little bit more resilient. So that's a lot better. There's actually a pretty continuous, like properly sprayed membrane of paint on the inside of this thing, sealing the inside of the cab, which is nice. Often they just get a bit of a dusting and the paint doesn't really do much at all in the production amps, but this has got an actual like full membrane coat. So that means the spores haven't sort of embedded into the timber, which is fantastic. The bag cleaned up well, so we'll install all this, get the thing together and have a listen. Right, so I've confirmed that the output side of the reverb tank is mounted on the opposite side to the power transformer, which is up here. Just one note on this bag. That's a really nice, really thick padded bag. This bag, padded bad. Let me start again. This is a really thick, nice padded reverb bag. Often you just get the vinyl ones from Fender and whatever, but this is like a foam, like 10mm thick foam. The kind of thing you see with the really premium cabinet covers, or you know, the gig bags. So that'll help damp the tank, and it'll help stop any microphonics coming from the speaker back into the pickup side of the reverb tank. Alright, I've given the cabinet a little bit of a scrub with some mildly soapy water. Not getting it too wet, just enough on a sponge to wet the surface, then just a soft bristle brush to get into the grain there of the Tilex, and that pulls out the dirt primarily around where you grab it by the handle. It gets dirtier from manky hands. But yeah, a big white bright cabinet ready to dazzle once again. Alright, so one last criticism, because I'm that kind of guy. You guys wouldn't know yourselves if I didn't have one more, is this. Because the screws tighten the chassis down to 2 cleats inside the amplifier, that actually has the effect of clamping the chassis, moving it down by about 2mm, so you can easily, just got about a 2.5mm gap there. So all manner of stuff could go in there. Now if you've got kids, they'll find any little gap and jam stuff in there. You'll find guitar picks and all sorts of shit, coins, could short stuff out, but primarily the safety thing is you know, a guitar string or a ruler finding its way into the high tension or the mains area. It's quite easy. So what I might have to do is pack that chassis up and then retighten the screws again, just for a safety thing. Now every video I get grief from people from finding these things, but I'm not gonna stop, guys. I'm here for that reason. I don't know why people are getting upset that I'm finding ways to improve amplifiers. I just don't understand. People say, oh, that amplifier was okay for 40 years before you had it, so why are you flagging the obviously improvable problems? Because it's my job. Like, grow up a bit, would ya? I don't know, just go find a review shield channel if that's what you want. This is for techs mainly, stuff to look out for. And for customers and curious people who want to know more about amps. If you don't want to know more about amplifiers, just, I don't know, just log out of YouTube. Go watch nature videos or something.
you.